Feel very special right now.
That was fancy.
That one will wake you up. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Things might look a little bit different on the screen today. And I want to just, first of all, Joe, thank you for being here with us. This is still All That Jam, but this is To the Next Set, which is a new All That Jam sub-series dedicated to the invisible architecture of the touring industry, is kind of how we're thinking about it. And so we're going to be spending time in this series talking about all of the ins and outs and the real experiences for people who are doing what we love as fans, which is seeing a bunch of live music. But there's a lot to that we never really get to understand and know. And I think it's more and more important that we do. And I'm joined by Jamille. Jamille, thank you so much. Jamille's going to be with us for this.
Hello, everybody.
And Joe, so let me do a quick intro here, and then we're gonna get into it. Sure. If you have spent time in the jam, funk, or improvisational music world, you have probably crossed paths with Joe Marcinek and your ever-evolving roster of collaborators. You're a driving force behind the Joe Marcinek Band, and you've built a career really around community and some serious time on the road. So today we're going to dig into what that really looks like, pivots, pressures, why live music still matters, and we really want to hear from you about that. So Joe, let's just start off by asking the question on everyone's mind: how is Jam Cruise?
Unbelievable! Wow, it's one of those like best events of the year thing, and you try to like explain it to people that have never been, and you just fall short with finding the right words, because it's like you're at a festival, everyone's all together, but you don't ever have to go anywhere. There's no like Ubering or getting to the next thing. You've got a nice bed and shower. There's cafeteria ready to eat. So like there's no thinking of anything involved. It's just like wake up and go have fun and see amazing music and connect with so many amazing people. So yeah, really, really hard to describe, but just one of the best things you'll ever do if you ever get to go, and just highly recommended.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know that you've got a pretty stacked schedule of touring, now and into the spring. But we're here because, it might have been even a year ago, I had seen some posts, I think it may have been on Instagram, where, you were getting real in a way that I really appreciated about the touring industry, about live music. And, I want to talk a little bit about that today in your context. So could you share for people kind of where you kind of see yourself in this jam scene? Do you consider you're part of the jam band scene? How would you kind of describe that for other people who may not be quite as familiar?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the music that I wrote on my early records, I've got 9 records out now, which is crazy, but it was more heavily jazz influenced, but not like straight jazz. So it was definitely very groove based and leaned on the jam side. And I went to the first Bonnaroo, like that was very influential. This whole jam world was kind of growing up as I was growing up. So, huge influence. And I always felt like I was too jammy for the jazz world and a little too jazzy for the jam world. So it's kind of never had a perfect home. But obviously in the live music scene, that was definitely in the whole jam band world.
Absolutely.
Where I was coming up and still where I play in a lot of those clubs and festivals and musicians. So that was a big part of it. And then to speak of that thing you were talking about last year, so I recorded we did a live show in 2023, and I got the unbelievable honor to work with Dennis Chambers on drums, Jesus Molina on piano, which if you haven't heard of him, he's one of the craziest piano players you'll ever hear. We had Howard Levy on harmonica from the Flecktones, Jason Hand from String Cheese on percussion, my buddy Ola Timothy on bass, and Riley Commissar singing. We played the Iridium Jazz Club in New York, and it was just a fabulous show, just about sold out. We got a really good recording. And so, like I said, I have 9 albums out now. I haven't released a live album yet. So it's like, oh, this could be a really cool thing. To finally be the first live album. It's a really good recording. It features kind of songs, from all of my albums. So it almost in a weird greatest hits, idea or whatever, a little sampler of everything. So I decided to try something new last year. in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I started a Patreon just as a way to kind of keep, a way for me to pay my bills, but also pay my sanity. So it was like all the gigs were gone. So I needed something to do every week. So every week I would try to do a new post on the Patreon. And this could be a live recording, finding old demos or old videos, new things I've been working on. It was just like a new creative outlet. And during the pandemic with no shows, it was the perfect thing. So then it also kind of helped give a little extra money to pay the bills. And I just kept it going since 2020. So it was over, I think, 500 posts on there now. And I've released, all my Dead Funk Summit shows, live videos that we did in New Orleans. They're all on there. A bunch of the after parties I've done are on there. It's just a wealth of knowledge. And in today's market, people don't really purchase music anymore. You give Spotify $10 a month and the artists only see hardly a fraction of that. So it was like trying to find a sustainable way to keep the lights on and keep new music coming. So last year I decided I was going to put this live album exclusively on Patreon. It was like just for people that supported me. That was the only way you could get the album and get to see the video. And so we had a few people sign up, but it was, 5 or 10 people. It was pretty sad, actually, for, I've got over 20,000 followers on Facebook and almost 10,000 on Instagram. So you would think there'd be a little more than 5 or 10. I wasn't expecting everyone, but maybe a few more. And so I, as you get discouraged when you're really passionate about something and it's basically crickets, I just went on Instagram and wasn't serious, but said something along the lines of like, I think it's time to quit music. This isn't working out. And so this post that I made about quitting music was the most viral thing I'd ever got in my whole time of promoting music. So here I have this album that I was so proud of, and Dennis Chambers and all these legends. And that post, hardly any reaction. And then making a post about quitting music, I saw the metrics, reached over 100,000 people. And it's like, this is ridiculous. Something negative is getting all this traction, but the actual thing of creating art was like no response. And so, it makes you put everything into perspective. And obviously you can't do that all the time, but it's just like, what are the answers? I don't know if anyone knows. And how do we get our music out and get them to actual people that want to hear it? And it's something you're trying to figure out every day of like, what do we have to do to actually get the music to the people that want to hear it?
Yeah, I sympathize with you, Joe. I'm coming at this from a bit different perspective than the two of you, being that I'm in Los Angeles. Los Angeles isn't exactly known for being very welcoming to the jam band scene in particular these days, or at this point, basically any young and touring artist. The size of the music clubs seem to be fading away with the greater regularity. And even the bands that would come through and play like the smaller theater venues, it's all so different. And it's so hard to see that I've noticed a lot of bands just skipping Los Angeles entirely. They'd go from San Francisco to San Diego. Why go to LA? Do you find that struggle in some cities or metropolitan areas where the the venues are not as accessible, and just being out there in front of people isn't quite as easy as it used to be? I remember being in New Orleans 20 years ago. You walk down the street, you've got 5 different national touring bands lined up with lines out the door. You go to Nashville, same thing. You used to go to the Sunset Strip, you'd see the same thing, but they're being able to keep that alive there. But here in Los Angeles, it's a little bit different.
I honestly, I see it everywhere. And, obviously LA is a bigger market, and so a bigger representation of that. But yeah, it's happening all over the country. Clubs are closing. And it's harder and harder for bands that especially want to play original music. Right. A lot, it's like the whole market is all cover bands now or tribute acts. And I've joined the battle. I do my Dead Funk Summit as one of the reasons, just to be able to get out and play, because feel like most people don't want to invest in something new. And, I've never heard of this. I'm probably not going to go check it out. And so that mindset just keeps going. And so it's harder and harder for a new band. It used to be bands would go on the road, and that's how you build
That's
a
how you got
following.
to know them.
Play 100 shows, and now clubs won't book a band, and it's like, well, how am I going to sell tickets if I'm not getting out there playing it and not making an audience? And so
They want the guarantee before anybody knows your name.
yeah, and it's crazy. It's like now you have to build a following and then go on tour. So it's like you have to make all these ridiculous social media videos just to find an audience, and that's half the time, we're not, as musicians, we don't get into this to be a video editor or making videos. Like, I'm trying to make music. I want to play the guitar, and that's almost like the last thing you do. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So when you think about putting together a tour these days, this is what I get really curious about. A lot of people have told us, in addition to all those things, that from a timing perspective, venues are also booking way, way, way farther out in general. How does that change your perspective? How do you navigate all this? How does it come together?
It's really tricky, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, especially with me, with all my different lineups. It's like you're saying, I'm working on dates in June right now, and it's funny because the venues are booking up, but then with different artists I work with, they don't yet know their schedules. So it's like I'm trying to get the artist to agree to the dates, but the venue doesn't want to give the date until they know who's playing in the band. And so you're kind of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You kind of got to hope there's a little blind faith on both sides. It's really interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't want to say I'm getting discouraged, but it's very discouraging.
Yeah.
And so when we play music, it's like it refills your cup so much that you're like crazy enough to like, all right, I'm going to go back out and do it again. But then you face all these difficulties and you're like, why am I doing it? And then luckily you get to the stage and you're like, all right, I'll deal with another week of torture just to get back to here.
So it sounds like, and I see this here in Denver. I mean, I don't want to hype Denver and make it sound like it's so different from other parts of the country. But I see even here.
But it kind of is.
Yeah, okay, we can go there a little bit. I mean,
it kind of is.
Yeah, it's fine. We're a little bit spoiled, but I love collabs. I love super groups. I love rotating lineups. I love it all, right? I love the traditional setup. It sounds almost, and I'd love to know if you agree with this, that idea of the collaboration, that rotating thing, is part of what needs to happen, or what seems to be part of that success today, is having some facet of that. Would you say, or no?
I don't think it's necessarily what's needed. We're kind of doing it as means of survival almost, because if you team up, if say I'm from Chicago and I come to Denver, and if I've never played there before, how are you reaching an audience? So if I can team up with some people in Denver, now all of a sudden we're helping each other out, by the people in Denver will hopefully help promote the show and the band and the venue. So yeah, it's kind of like a means of survival at this point versus something that, like ideally you just like to have your band and the songs speak for themselves. And this is what I keep asking everyone is like, are the songs not good enough? Is the music not, captivating enough to where it stands on its own, where you have to do all these other things? Is there just so much music now that nothing stands out? Like what is the difference that makes a Billy Strings be able to sell out an arena? And then another artist can't even fill 500 seats. Like are his songs that much better than, I don't even know who else. So I'll use myself as an example. Like, are his songs that much better than mine? Is that really what it is? Or is it this whole marketing machine? Like, what makes something stand out? And I'd love to get both of your opinions on that. That's
a really tough one. I mean, I don't know. Jamille, thoughts?
Well, that is a really tough one. And the subject of our next conversation, of our next pod, or well, maybe not the next one. But yeah, no, Joe, that really is the question. It's like, how does one hit and something very similar doesn't? I mean, you see it and that's not even exclusive to the jam band world. That's something that you see across popular music, worldwide. You get those stars, and then all of a sudden, anybody who sounds anything like that is emulating it. It's like, oh, well, they sound so much like so and so. So someone becomes that benchmark, becomes sort of the standard bearer, if you would,
Yeah.
of a genre. And after that, everybody else, no matter how long they've been doing it, even if they've been doing it longer, and they might even do it a little better, but for some reason, it's the marketing machine. Is it media? But even with that, it's not the way it used to be. Radio play is not what gets artists noticed anymore.
Yeah.
No.
You need a podcast. You need a million plus subscriber Instagram channel. You need to do some quirky, viral moment or something to get noticed, and then people will listen to your music.
Yeah, I remember during that COVID era, I had another show on a homegrown radio network at that time, and I was talking to people from all over the world. Literally, I mean, it was a really eye-opening thing, because one of the things we would always talk about is, what could we be doing for you right now? Right? I'm sitting here. I'm not a musician. I care deeply about this community. What can I do? Or people like me? And, it was a lot of a similar answer, but I think something you mentioned, Joe, initially is what I come back to is we know the platforms that, as much as all of us kind of think about content, oh man, more content, we got to do the thing. That's where we're at, is putting ourselves out there. But as fans, I think these days, if you really are part of a community, part of that is showing up in different ways. And some of that is using the time that you do have. Maybe it's not so much the financial part as even just taking the time to like something, share something, take a minute out and throw your own personal review of something, or dude, I love that, putting a comment up somewhere. It's the algorithm battle, and it sounds so silly, but that's the grind, maybe. But I think that I do believe that as fans, we have a role to play in that. If we want to see this continue for decades to come, and I know we all do, I think we need to be out there a little bit too,
That's a real good point, Amanda.
Yeah.
Very good point. Our own engagement, don't just wait for it to come to you, but actually put yourself out there.
Yeah.
As fans.
And get creative.
Because that's where we're coming from, is the fan perspective. I'm sorry, I keep hitting my microphone.
Yeah. I think everyone's got such a busy life that it's like a lot of these things just slip your mind. Yeah. And, you're going to work all day and then you come home and you're just trying to unwind. It's like, yeah, I might forget sharing this band's post on Facebook. It's not that big of a deal. So it's like these little things, it's like no one is forcing you to go out and be in a band. Like, this is a luxury. We're honored to be able to do this. So you always try to remember that and appreciate it as like, this is a truly lucky thing to be able to do. No one's forcing you to do it. So if your band doesn't make it, it's like, there's no guide that says you should make it, or like history has proven that it's harder than ever to make it. So we're just lucky to be able to go out and connect. But I think most people really need that kind of connection in their lives where you can have something positive and influential of like going and hearing a band and getting lost in a moment, or even just sharing a real in the moment thing. You're not thinking about the past or thinking about something horrible that's coming up. It's like, no, I got to go to this band and they played the song and it was like, for that moment I was alive. That was awesome. I want to do that again.
So Joe, that's where how Amanda and I came up with this little idea was we went down to San Diego. We what was it, like 20 of us met in San Diego to go to 2 nights of music at a venue down there, and it was just so great to be surrounded by all of our friends and see this fantastic band play and just have a great weekend being us all together in one place. So that fan engagement, that bringing people together is really, really what music has always meant to me.
Yeah. And so true. Joe, I would love to get your perspective on this. I wonder if it's maybe something that we don't realize, what we maybe don't fully understand, how one of those engagements, whatever it might be, is meaningful, and that it does matter.
Well, and then it snowballs too, because it's like, one person sees it and then they feel comfortable to comment or engage or share or whatever it is. And so, sometimes it just takes one and then the next person comes in. I saw there's a guitarist named Ella Ray Feingold. I think I'm pronouncing her right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing funk guitarist, but she put up this post today about like just when you hear something, like everyone's first instinct is to say, oh, it sounds like this or that sounds like that. And she's like, that kind of robs it of its joy. Like, just say how it makes you feel. So like, I heard this new song and, oh, that sounds like Jim Morrison. Yeah. But then you could also say like, man, that really like made me sad or made me think of my dad or like whatever it is. So like, yeah, just like describing how it makes you feel. And then that touches on a larger thing. So if like makes you feel something, you know, that is something to
it's really powerful.
Yeah, and other people want to experience that. Like, you know, art is the transfer of emotion, right? So if I'm sad and I play a song and then it inspires something in you, and then you can do in your own way whatever that is, transfer it on to the next person. It's like this giant energy ball that fills all of us.
I love that. Now, the former middle school language arts teacher here is already a wheel of adjectives and words and sentence starters, because sometimes it's hard to know how to even express that. But I do agree. I think being able to get real personal with something is good. Okay, so here's what I'm curious about. We haven't really talked about specifically venues. And I'm just thinking about, you know, not only out here where I am, but I'm seeing, you know, that there are some interesting ways that venues are trying to, I think, really be community-led. I see some nonprofit organizations that are running music venues. Joe, I'm wondering, just in your travels, have you seen some venues that are really doing interesting things to just make stuff happen, you know, for themselves, for their artists, that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, and all over the map. You can tell right away when you walk into a venue and it's like the owners are music fans, and then you can walk into somewhere else and it's just some corporate bought Live Nation venue where there's no soul and all the artwork is from IKEA or whatever on the wall. Like, you know right away if a place has some really true people that care for it, and that inspires the arts too. So when you walk into a place and you can feel the history, that's going to make, you know, the band more inspired and want to really give it their all, versus when you walk in and they're already sound man or sound woman's grumpy and owners like, oh, we haven't sold enough tickets, and you feel this negativity, you absorb that as well. So it's like on both sides you can uplift and really inspire a night. And then, hey, think about that. If the artist is inspired, they're going to put on a good show, which then the audience is going to feel. They're probably going to want to come back, you know. So it works both ways of the negativity versus the positivity, and yeah, it's kind of, you know, our role of humans is to kind of step out of that and not let the things that affect you so much. But how can you not? You know, it's part of being human too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, Jamille, you know some folks that are music venue operators outside of, you know, our immediate community. And I see really creative things, you know, being done and just different ways to approach the booking process. I know that as we move forward in this series, we are going to definitely want to talk to folks that are operating music venues too, because that's so crucial. And just hear not only what things are like, but how they're maybe thinking about what they differently, right? How can they
absolutely. You know, it's Joe, you kind of really you nailed it there with describing the corporate structure of a music venue versus something that, you know, somebody actually owns and a legacy that they're trying to keep alive, whether it was their own family who started it or whether it was just like a jazz club from the 1930s that really needs to stay open and somebody has to run it, you know, having no prior connection to it, because I know a couple of those places actually here in LA, and I'm really proud to call the owners of those places friends of mine, that looking forward to having conversations with them here too. So, yeah. Oh, I just saw Carl. Oh, we're not. Well, we can cut this out. But no, I just saw that Carl D is doing like 4 nights at the Blue Note here in Los Angeles in June. I'm like, that is really. I'm definitely going to be going to at least 2 of those.
I think you see that, and especially a lot of the bigger artists playing smaller venues multiple nights or doing an early show and a late show, that kind of thing. And also just it's like turning things into events as opposed to shows. Like I heard someone the other day who's like, shows sell, events sell out. And so it's like you kind of either teaming with other bands or having a theme or bringing in a chef or like a brewery or something. And it's like you try to make each night something special. And that's also what I've always tried to do with these different lineups is you can't recreate it night after night. So it's like, if you want to see this is only happening tonight. This is
your chance.
Yeah, and this is like how we are alive tonight. Like you're a little happier, you're a little sluggish. Like wear all your feelings out, and I kind of hope that translates to the crowd too. Of like, whatever it is, like dance that aggression away, or you're not feeling it, just stand in the back and let it wash over you. Like just like let every night be that night of your life. And I think some of the venues are definitely doing that and doing these themed events or. Like during the month, they've got some kind of anniversary or special show going that you really see that. Different ideas for themes and stuff.
Yeah. Well, one of those that you have coming up is going to be New Orleans Jazz Fest era. And that is going to be something that you're doing with Mark Stone, who's a buddy of mine. And I was super excited to see that, the Super Summit. And I looked at that and I thought, that's
love
fun.
Jazz Fest.
But putting that together, I know requires it's time and it's effort, it's coordination. But that's to me is a perfect example of where you have different things happening, right? But the list of people that are going to be a part of that are amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Maybe how that came together?
Yeah, so I've tried to find like an anchor of a big show I could do every year during Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And it was this 2022. My friend Paulina was working at the Toulouse Theater at the time. So she's like, we can get you in on a Tuesday night. And usually Tuesday night between the 2 weeks is a pretty slow night. So it was like, all right, let's go for it. We've got this opportunity here to do something special. And I had just recorded my Dead Funk Summit record, which was my dream collaboration with George Porter Jr. from the Meters and Melvin Seals, who played with the Jerry Garcia bands, Dead and the Funk, bringing them together. But the album was all original music. So that was a core idea too, of wanting to take these legacy and these heroes, but create something new with it. And so, of course, in the live show, we still play some Dead and some Meters and New Orleans music, but we're also playing some new stuff that we had just wrote. So that was the first kind of Dead Funk Summit down in New Orleans. And so we grew that at the Toulouse for the 3 years. Then last year we did it at Shaggy's Crawfish Festival, which was really awesome. And now this year we're going to do it at DBA with Mark Stone. So the idea was kind of his band and his whole crazy thing, which is very similar to what I'm doing with all these different artists kind of coming in and out. So we're calling it the Super Summit. So bringing those two together, and it's one ticket for the whole night. We'll probably start around 8:00 and go till 2 a.m. I don't know, there's close to like 20 musicians on the bill for the night, and you never know who else will just swing by and drop in. So
that's New Orleans. That's Jazz Fest.
And Mark's just such an amazing person and doing so much for the local community. And has a radio show on OZ, amazing guitarist and singer, and has a bunch of original stuff out as well. So, yeah, I think all of us people that are trying to do the same thing of just bringing people together and letting everyone shine. And in this world where it's like very corporate and dry, is like, the people that are trying to do it organically are standing out because there's less and less of us, but we're also all kind of starting to team up like you guys are doing on the pod. So,
that's right. And it shows, and it's super special. And I think that is something that is really apparent. When I see things like that. I know we're going to wrap up here in a minute. I would love to ask though, other stuff you have coming up, whether it's, soon or out a ways. Anything that you want to share, Joe, before we call it for today?
Yeah, so that record I was talking about, we're actually going to release it as my first live album on April 17th. and this will be kind of right before the Jazz Fest show, which is on April 28th. So look out for that. That'll be coming soon. I'm doing a fun one. When Fish plays in Vegas, we're doing an after party at the Tuscany, which is where they do the big shakedown and everything. So that'll be the first night of the run, April 16th. And then still cranking away on the Patreon. So that's kind of been my fun thing to do. I'm still posting every week. Got a new album in the works with Melvin Seals and collaborating with different singers. So every song will have a different songwriter on it. So that's something new for me, for having vocals on my album. But we got some demos already up on the site, and just continuing to do it. My buddy's Groove Session, Jamille, I don't know if you know those guys.
I do indeed know those guys.
Yeah, we just went and recorded a new record too, so hopefully that'll be out in the summertime. And always love playing with those guys.
Well, we appreciate you, and we want to make sure that all this information gets out in the best way that we can. You have always been so kind about coming on and chatting with us, so we just want to thank you so much.
Thank you,
Joe. Thank you so much. It's so great to meet you.
You rock.
Yeah.